Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach,
And I'm Pepper.
and today we're giving our first impressions of Skyrise, which is the new game from Roxley Games. This is one that I think both of us were pretty excited about. I think you were probably a little bit more excited than I was, waiting for this one to deliver, and it finally did.
Yes, yeah, this one I first heard. Z Garcia had talked about it. I don't know if it was in a games we're excited for in a certain year or something like that. He talked about this game that was re-implementing Metropolis, and also having the art from Andrew Bosley got me excited as well as being from Roxley because they've made some really uh, good games as well. But yeah, I was just seemed like it had a unique gameplay to it, but also hopefully lightweight. That's right up my alley. I was very excited.
Yeah, I would agree, and yeah, it has a bit of a bidding mechanism that it's kind of the main thing you're doing in the game. And yeah, it definitely looked unique and quick and snappy, and also pretty easy to kind of know what's going on and makes it easier to kind of value things, I think, or know what you're giving up for what, versus some games with bidding. I think sometimes it's hard to value things. At least that's well, we've played it one time, and actually we
Yeah.
played this one over Skype. We will note that,
Yes, we
which
did.
actually we played it played pretty easily. It probably took us longer than it normally would if you were in obviously both playing at the same table, but actually it was pretty nice. I guess what was your experience? I was the person that had it on the table, so I was managing that, but
Yeah, and I think it helped because I had watched the Watch It Played video, and I was a little more into how the game was played over you. So I think that it probably evened it out. I was away from the actual game, but knew more about it. You knew a little less, but had it there to deal with, and it
mhm.
felt really smooth. I feel like there wasn't really anything hindering that gameplay or
No.
keeping me from enjoying it to its fullest, other than being able to hold the beautiful components in my hand. Which there are a few levels we can back. We got the one with the miniatures for the buildings. Otherwise, there are some wooden pieces which look all right, but not personally not nearly as good as miniatures.
I would agree. Yeah, I got to see it on the production, the great production that Roxley always can bring to games with their deluxified versions of games, and this one was no different. It reminded me in many ways of Tapestry because of that Andrew Bosley artwork on the front. They both kind of feel like similar worlds. Like this maybe could be in the Tapestry world, and
That
that wouldn't
does.
surprise me. And then the buildings themselves make me think of kind of maybe bigger versions of your little income buildings and
Yeah.
maybe just the buildings in general, but really made me think of larger versions of income buildings personally.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
was
can
all
see that.
really good quality. The few cards that they had in the game were all really good quality, and just pretty much everything. The insert made it very easy to put everything back in the box, store it nicely. So top of the notch production quality. If that's holding you back at all, top of the notch.
That is one thing that definitely drew me into it, so I am happy to hear that.
Yes, but then we got into our first play of it, and yeah, we never really played it before, and the open information, pretty much being all open information, kind of helped make it so that we could do it over Skype, but also was maybe a little bit different than a lot of kind of bidding or auction style
Yeah,
games that we have played. I think we not many have like that open of information of what you are able to actually commit to something. So that was it made it a little bit more approachable in that way. And that definitely felt like it came through in the game because you'd get to the point where you'd know if, okay, so well, it was just a two-player game. It'd be
yeah,
interesting to see with four players because then I'm guessing you're going to have a little bit more. Like in here, you knew, oh, well, Jesse's highest is 65 or something.
yeah,
And I've got two or three that are bigger than that. So if I wanted to, if I can win this, I could just win the next three that I want if I want to.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Typically,
That is interesting, and might have actually been easier to play because I had written down like your numbers here on there, which I might not have done in person, and I might not have been checking the numbers that you had remaining. I probably would have. There's not too many, and it is pretty important to know. Uh, but yeah, like you said, having that all open information, you know what everyone's got. There's no like simultaneous bid of or trying to outthink. It's just like, do you want to outbid them? And you know what they have left to outbid you then, so you might know for sure you're going to win this if you play that. But then you do also have to think forward of, well, and what's that going to leave me in the future? Is this actually worth it? Do I want to save this high building to place somewhere else? Because then sometimes you get where you maybe got rid of your high ones. You don't really have any in the middle there. You just have a bunch of low numbers remaining now. And then the opponent can actually win 2 or 3 in a row that way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was very simple, approachable, and yeah, it was a lot funner than I thought. I wasn't sure how it would play at 2 players, if it would feel like a full experience, and I definitely think it did. Sometimes these style of games won't work unless you have kind of at a minimum 3 players, and maybe it'll be better at 3 players. I don't know for sure. But then that adds on kind of another board. So you can see here, there's two. Looks like it's set up for a 2-player game, right? I've got our faces in the way. Yeah, this is set up as a 2-player game. You'd add kind of an additional one of these boards for 3 and an additional 2 of them for a 4-player game. So you'd have kind of more areas that you're spread out into potentially that you'd be bidding on. But yeah, it does make for interesting decisions of if you can kind of, especially once some buildings start getting placed, and there's kind of some little areas that can be kind of closed off potentially. You could give someone a kind of a double turn of if they want that next one kind of that's by itself, they just could automatically win that auction. Which is really interesting to think of when you're choosing kind of which direction you want to place your next bid. If you don't want to, maybe you don't for sure want to win one of those, but you're kind of fine if you do, and you just don't want your opponent to win one. So you're like, which way do I want my opponent to be headed if they do outbid me?
Yeah, that's true. You have a few moments as well where you think, okay, I want to get over to this place by the end of it where I can drop a big one and just claim a specific spot, but maybe no buildings are next to that. So you just want to steer it in that direction, but also, not set up your opponent for a really juicy spot that they're going to just drop the hammer and win that automatically. But it's just such a unique bidding mechanism. It's outbidding with a higher number, but you just keep changing the spot that you're bidding for. It's just unlike anything that I know. It's like, I'm going to bid for this bicycle, and you're like, I'm going to bid an extra $1, but for that toaster. I mean, it's just, I'm not used to playing like that, but it's very intuitive. It's very intuitive, easy to pick.
Yeah, 100%. And I enjoyed our first play of it. And kind of another piece is you can see on some of those tiles that are unclaimed here that there are little tokens that you're picking up. So you're kind of managing a player board as well to multiply your scores of the different colored areas by kind of how far up your track you are for each specific color. So if you picked up, I guess you could have technically picked up none of the colored chips. Maybe, I guess I don't remember. There's these other chips you can pick up that would not be placed into the spots. So I guess technically, if the game ended here, all of your areas that you had would be 2 each. But if you got a couple yellow chips throughout the game and got it to the 4 point there, then every one of your yellow spots you owned at the end of the game would be worth 4 points. So ideally, you want the third spot because, as you can see there, if you get 4 of the same color chip, then the values go back down to 4. So it goes 2, 3, 4, 6, and then back down to 4. So you don't want too many, unless you get an additional one after that potentially, because then that one will be worth 10 by itself. Just the chip itself will be worth 10.
Yes, so
that's kind of a weird little thing there.
If you're set up to maybe be able to get 1 or possibly 2, if you can get 2 past that maximum, then I think it's definitely worth it. Otherwise, you probably break about even. getting one extra and getting that 10-point bonus, but also lowering the score of all those places. But yeah, I think we settled at 6 as the max for any of our individual colors in the game. That's pretty cool. It's a simple scoring. It's not adding a super complicated mechanism that you have to think about and be really crunchy about. Everything is gaining you points in the game, and this kind of reminds me of Dwellings of Eldervale, how you are in the different elements and increasing the value of the things you own in those elements throughout the game. Except in that one, it's when you get a purple element thing, it also increases the score. Where this one, they can be split, and you have to go get a green spot that has a white token to actually increase your white score. So that's a little interesting. And some of the spots, a lot of the spots on one of the islands that we had, actually the white spot had the white token on it, the brown spot had the brown token on it. So those were very valuable spots on the board.
Yeah, I would agree. And obviously, we've only played it one time, so I don't know, but I think that this board might be the one point of the game that I'm not sure over multiple plays if it's going to kind of feel like, since you don't really have too much of a reason to try to get more than 3. I mean, there's going to be times you end up with it potentially, and you might try to shoot the moon essentially and try to get more than that. But most of the time, I think with the number of chips out there, even in a higher player count game and stuff, I think it's kind of distributed similarly. So I think everyone's going to kind of be trying to go for that. I guess I'd have to see how that plays out, but I think in the 2-player game, we both kind of, I think I had 3 that were at that 3rd level and then 1 that I hadn't started at all. And I think you had 2 at the 3 level or 6-point level.
I think so. Yeah.
And then 1 at like the 3-point, I think, and the 4-point or something. So I just wonder if that will actually come into play and be something people actually try to shoot the moon for or not, or if it'll just kind of feel like, well, I got to the 6 points. So that in a way kind of made me feel like, oh, is that just a way of making sure you don't just take all of them? Because I feel differently. I think if it did just continue to increase and get more and more, then it would be like, oh, those chips are becoming insanely valuable now because now it's 10 points or something crazy like that.
I guess if there were more players, I think you can. I forget how many of those wild tokens. I think there were 2 in that can be any color. There's 2 of them in the 2-player game. I think that might be all there is total, because I think you removed some from 4 to 3 players.
I think you're right.
I think you put them back for 2 players. So I think there are only 2 possible wild ones, but you would have possibly more of those tokens in a higher player count, which might not be distributed equally among the players if you are able to sneak them all from all the different locations. So I could see possibly shooting the moon quite well in a higher player count.
Yeah, I think it would probably work better there potentially. But yeah, otherwise, I think after 1 play, I'm thinking I would put this one at about maybe like a 8 to 8.5. I thought it ran really smoothly. The game went, I mean, especially for being over Skype, the game went really quick. And the production quality is top notch. I think this one could continue to grow for me with more and more plays. I think it's going to be one that's very approachable to get out onto the table. It's not going to feel like kind of a grind to set up and stuff that can sometimes hurt games. This one doesn't have that. I don't think. It took maybe a couple minutes for me to set it up by myself. So it's going to take about that same amount of time. You really just have to set up those boards and then put those tokens out on the board. So it's about all you have to do for setup. Shuffle a few cards and deal out to different players.
Yeah. Now, if you had the wood version here, wood and cardboard version, what would the number be? Would that drop it?
I think it'd drop it a little bit. Production definitely does play into it. I think. I think production gives it that extra value. It would probably be like maybe a 7.75. It'd drop it a little bit. It wouldn't be I'd still like the way the game played, obviously. So I think that's a strong piece to it. And I mean, they're not the worst looking wooden pieces,
Yeah.
but it's definitely not the same as the other one. But yeah, if you want great gameplay, you don't care about production, I think I could recommend just the retail version. I assume it is.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean, this delivered everything that I wanted it to deliver. Whenever I say that, I usually give a 10. I don't want to be too crazy and just give 10s all the time, even though I want to give a 10. So let's actually do it. Let's do it live here. Should I go by the BGG ranking scale? Outstanding, will always enjoy playing. Excellent, very much enjoy playing. Very good. Well, it's at least excellent. So I'm gonna give this. I'm gonna give it. You probably can't see it. Our faces are probably over it. But I'm gonna give this a 9.25 out of 10 for my first impression. That's
Yeah,
it.
I could definitely see that, and like I said, I think this one could probably rise for me because it's a quick one. So
It
hopefully
could
it'll get played
skyrise.
more. It could sky rise for me. Could get to that 9.25 level, because I think the game length will remain relatively short, and it'll be kind of interesting. You're always kind of involved in what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, potentially, and not always, I guess. If the bidding starts out higher than your highest one left, you're obviously not involved in that. Then I
Yeah.
mean, I guess you can watch what's going on, but you're obviously not going to bid at that point. But
Yeah.
that's because of your previous choices. So you
Yeah.
only have yourself to blame.
You have yourself to blame. But
But
yeah,
yeah,
it's.
so
I hope. I think it could even rise for me, or I guess just more solidify because I'm not sure if Michaela will like it or what player count we're going to get it at. If two player, I see two player here has 6 votes for not recommended on here on BGA, and I do wonder if we kind of ran into the situation near the end where you played a bunch of your high ones that you had remaining, so you got like 4 places in a row, and I was left with like 6 buildings that I could just place wherever I wanted to finish because everyone gets to place all their buildings to end the game, which I do enjoy that you aren't just left off with leftover buildings. But
yeah.
if that's common, where the game ends, at least at 2 players, where you're just playing 5 buildings in a row, it's satisfying. But if you can just count on that every time, that might hurt it a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. Because that I was thinking about that too. Like, yeah, I got a bonus 10 points, but out of the spaces remaining, so I guess it depends how. I think there were enough spaces that you had some valuable ones that you could still land on.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the way I kind of saw it. So, how much did I actually save on that? I don't know if it was more beneficial or not. Did win by like 11 points,
Yep.
so or was it 9 points? 11 points? What was it?
I think it was 11. Like if you hadn't had it, I would have won by 1.
Oh yeah, because I had the bonus +1
Plus
twice.
2
So
points.
it was really worth, I guess, 12 to me in the situation, but it would have typically been worth 10 points.
Yeah,
So it was the difference maker.
it was.
But yeah, so we can definitely recommend this one. Go check it out especially if you like kind of the auction bidding style games, want something that's maybe a little quick, snappy, and kind of the turns and what's going on. Especially if you do play at the 3 or 4 player accounts, because I could see it probably being the most enjoyable with that, because then you're kind of having to keep an eye on multiple people versus just kind of head to head.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. Otherwise, we have an unboxing video going up alongside this, so you can check that out to see everything inside the box. Even though we showed a lot of it here, you can check that one out. But otherwise, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up and possibly subscribe, so then you can see our future content. But as always, we hope to see you on the next one, and don't forget to keep on nibbling on our content.